Good evening and welcome to Speak Augusta. I'm your host, Ben Hasan. I'm here today to respond to a guest column that former Mayor Deek Copenhaver penned in the Augusta Press on April the 7th, 2024. And I want to do that by going potentially paragraph by paragraph to address some of the concerns or some of the, I'm going to say concerns that he was sharing with the public in terms of why he believed the mayor should have a vote. And so I'm opposed to that based on the process, but we'll get into that. So let's begin now as I begin to read and respond. Mayor Deek Copenhaver said, 28 years ago in 1996, the city of Augusta and the Richmond County government consolidated in order to avoid going into bankruptcy. Having spent 9 years serving as the mayor of Augusta Richmond County, I can speak with authority to the fact that our current form of government was founded upon mistrust and continue to breed mistrust in our community, both internally and externally to us every day. Well, my response would be coming from, I served as a commissioner for 8 years and 4 months at District 6. And first and foremost, he is absolutely correct. It was formed as a result of trying to avoid going bankruptcy in this region, in the city of Augusta and Richmond County. But also, mistrust of the document itself has nothing to do with that. The mistrust is from our own personal upbringing, our own personal way of life, and we are creatures of habit. We are creatures of our environment. That is not the document that is breeding distrust. Could have been possibly formed with that in mind because it ended up being 5-5. That's possible, but however, it is not what's breeding the mistrust. The mistrust is the environment that we are born into, and we're creatures of habit of our environment. He said, I've recently learned from former state Senator Charles Walker, who was at the negotiating table to draft our current charter in 1995, that the foundational document upon which our government operates was put together in an hour and a half due to time constraints placed upon those drafting it by then Speaker of the House, Representative Tom Murphy. 28 years since, I'm going to stop right there. Now, first thing I think Mayor Copenhaver is kind of mischaracterizing what Senator Walker said, and if I'm wrong about that, I'll address it in another manner. But let me read to you from, this is a Johnson enlists the former mayors to help in the fight for voting power. His comments that are attributed to former Senator Charles Walker. He said, Walker, along with other state officials, worked on consolidation of the city and county government 20 years ago to save the city from bankruptcy, he said during the press conference. They worked on it the entire legislative session, not just an hour and a half, not just 90 minutes. They worked on the entire legislative session, but the charter came down to the wire the last 90 minutes. Now, how I interpret that is, hey, we worked on it for quite some time. There were some roadblocks, some hurdles that we couldn't agree upon. We set it aside. Then at the last 90 minutes, the Speaker of the House intervened and said, hey, you guys need to get this document. If you want it to be voted on, you want it to pass, you want to implement it in 96, you need to get it together. They had 90 minutes left, 90 minutes left, and as a result, they came to a finality, and we have the document today. It gives the impression that he's saying that it was all formed in 90 minutes. That's not the case here. It also says they worked on it well. Never would have, and here's again, attributed to former Senator Walker, never would have thought the mayor could not get a vote, he said. We named him the chief executive officer. That implies he has the authority to get things done. Now, here's what he's saying. Now, some would have you believe he's saying that we overlooked. We didn't know the mayor didn't get a vote. We overlooked that. That's not what he's saying. He said we named him the chief executive officer. He's the CEO. And in this here, he's not a typical CEO. His power is defined. We have a weak form of government that is a form of government. You have weak mayor, strong mayor, and there's other forms of government. He said that implies he has authority to get things done. What the real challenge for us with mayors who are concerned about this is so much that they've misunderstood what their role is. They understand that certain things are written out. They understand what those authorities are. But at the end of the day, as he's saying that mayor has the ability to work with all 10 commissioners. That mayor has the ability to get in places that the normal commissioner does not necessarily have and should be very comfortable. What do I mean? Well, if 9 other commissioners see you spend a lot of time with District 1 commissioners, they can't say, why are you talking to District 1? They can say, you want to talk to District 2, because your job is to be the facilitator. Your job is to be the mediator. So as a result of that, that's the role. But most of the mayors get caught up in the title mayor and forget about their role as the chairperson and as the mayor of the governing body. That's what it simply is. They come in either way, like a bull in a china shop, having no regard for their colleagues, or they come in too passive and not willing to work with all of their colleagues to get things done and not forming an agenda that they should come in and sit down and talk about and form an agenda that they can move the city into the future. Those things does not happen, so you cannot attribute that to the document. That is once again our own behavior as elected officials. Now, he said, but because it wasn't explicitly stated within the charter, the mayor hasn't been allowed to vote, leaving a gridlock in Augusta Richmond County government. But once again, that's about the mayor. If you had a mayor who knows how to maneuver, that would never even be an issue. If that mayor really understood his power and really understood the influence, because the mayor is a position of influence, and the human being is a creature of influence. So if you're not able to influence people to see things your way, you have the problem. The charter is not the problem. It's the individual. It's not the charter. The human being, by nature, is a creature of influence. And so you need need a person in there who has the ability to influence other people to see issues their way. That's the bottom line. He said, 20 years ago since the consolidation took place, a charter that was flawed from its inception has remained virtually untouched for nearly 3 decades. Let me say this here. Mayor Copenhaver, I absolutely disagree with you. The charter was not flawed from its inception. There's a weak form of government. There's a weak mayor, strong mayor, different forms of government. All of these are legitimate forms of government. If we were to form this government outside the normal styles of government, yes, you would have a point there. But a weak mayor is a natural form of government. A strong mayor is a natural form of government. Having an administrative is a form of government. You know, different forms of government are out there, and so that's what you have to understand, and you know that. In your comments, you're aware of that. Then he said, I'd like to give you a quick overview of how government functions. He said, since consolidation took place, our mayor, whoever he or she may be, has the right to vote on any agenda item coming from our government only in the event of a tie. Each of our 10 commissioners represent 8 individual districts, and 2 super districts have the right to vote on every agenda item. An affirmative vote of 6 members of the body, which includes the mayor, is necessary to approve any agenda item. So let me look at that. He says he's going to give you a tutorial in what the government looks like, how it operates. He's absolutely right, because the mayor doesn't have a vote. The only time he can vote, make or break a tie in the event of, it's 5-5. That's true. However, also, when he says affirmative vote of 6 members of the body, which includes the mayor, is necessary to approve any agenda item. That's true. 6 votes will pass virtually all normal business. It would do that. But I'm going to address this here because I don't want you to see, when you see a document, you'll think because there's 6 persons there and that person is the mayor, that form, that passes. In the absence of the mayor pro tem steps in. In the absence of the mayor pro tem, the commissioners there chooses from among themselves if the mayor is absent and the mayor pro tem is absent, and they conduct the business of the day. But it takes 7 persons, even with the mayor there, to conduct business. Whether it's the mayor's there, or whether the mayor pro tem is conducted, or whether they elect one from themselves. So it takes 6 votes to pass, but 7 persons is a quorum for Augusta Richmond County government. Nothing passes without that. Now, he also said he wants to tell you how the government works. I agree with that about who votes and who doesn't vote. But also, I would like the mayor to be honest with you about what constitutes passage when it comes to a resolution. A resolution is something that is passed by the governing body. When you look at what was sent to Atlanta, this document here, a resolution with 5 names on it here, and it has a 1 page here with another person. But let's deal with here, because we can take that one person and you can put it on this line right here, and you can have all 6 of them here. But I want you to know this document here has never went before the governing body. It has never went. What does the process look like? The governing body is a process, but at the end of it, it's voted on by the commission, meaning that that issue is put on the agenda, it is voted on, and if it passes, it ends up going to your administrator gets it, she looks at it, she forwards it to your attorney initials it, the mayor signs it, and it goes to your clerk who attests to all of that, and then you forward it off. That's what a resolution looks like. You see none of that here. None of that, because it never was on the agenda. Why is it important to be on the agenda? Because for public notice, the public must be informed that this is taking place, that this is on the agenda. For the public can weigh in on it, or choose not to. This document does not represent a resolution. And so if the mayor said he wants to explain to you how the government works, he should also come clean about this is not a legitimate resolution from the city of Augusta or from the mayor's office, because it never went through the governmental process, because there's a process in this government. Now, what does one look like, Hasan? Here's one right here. Here's a resolution. At the bottom of it, it lets you know that the commission has voted on it. Here, you see the signature of the attorney. Then you see the mayor signs it, and then you see the clerk attest to it. That's what it looks like. It went through the process. Here's another one. We have commissioner's signature on it. You see the same thing. You see the signature of the attorney, that there's a legitimate, is a legal document. You see here the mayor's signature, and here you see the clerk signs it to attest to it, that it went through the process. This is what Mayor Copenhaver ought to say to you as well when he talk about democracy. He said, as opposed to our government functioning as a representative democracy, its current form enables the tyranny of the minority to come to the forefront, or the for time and time again. I guess that's his point. I don't want to misquote him here. But here's what concerns me about that. He admits that abstaining is a part of the process. Commissioners can do that. They can choose to vote, up to abstain, to walk out. Even when you heard your state legislator, when you're going to hear your state legislator in the future make comments, they're going to be announcing that we do it up here in Atlanta. They do it on the federal level. Abstention is a part of the process. Abstention with Mayor Copenhaver, and he can attest to this. When he was the mayor of the city of Augusta, a citizen by the name of Woody Mary sued the city, or sued Marion Williams for abstaining. He went to Superior Court, and the judge ruled pretty much that Mayor Copenhaver had the right to interpret Marion's abstention. Now, of course, the commission didn't expect none of that. So what they did, they appealed to a higher court, and it was overruled. So we have been here before. Mayor Copenhaver has lived this experience in his 9-year tenure as the mayor of the city of Augusta, that he knows abstention is a part of the process. Now, I'm going to come back to this. As opposed to our government functioning as a representative democracy, its current form enables the tyranny of the minority to come to the forefront time and time again. You know, the word tyranny does concern me, because people are exercising their right. He actually deliberately getting in the front of trying to stifle progress, and nothing can be further from the truth. But when he says democracy, I wonder how he viewed democracy when you look at this document never came before the Augusta Commission. So when Commissioner Tony Lewis never had an opportunity to look at it, is that representative democracy? Commissioner Scott never had a chance to look at it, is that representative democracy? Commissioner Johnson never had a chance to weigh in on it, is that representative democracy? Commissioner Bobby Williams never had an opportunity to weigh in on it, is that representative democracy? Commissioner Stacey Pullum never had an opportunity to weigh in on it, is that representative democracy? So I ask that question. Now let's go to the state legislators. When you go to the state legislator, when you're going to hear them say in the future that they didn't have an opportunity, it was given to Senator Max Burns and to Senator Mark Newton and not the rest of the delegation. They had an opportunity to weigh in on it, other than after the fact, after the process was began to put in place, and then they came and addressed them and asked for their support, and they said the same thing. This needs to go back and be done correctly. Now, who was ignored up there? Representative Brian Prince, Representative Gloria Frazier, Representative Lynn Gladney, Representative Carlton Howard, and the senior senator for Augusta Richmond County, Senator Harold Jones. All of these was ignored. And so the question becomes to Mayor Copenhaver, is this what representative democracy looks like? And I must admit, all of these were blacks that were ignored. Is that what representative democracy looks like? So when one considers the younger generations of Augustans, I believe it is inherent upon our community to ask for their input into how our local government works. With citizens who were born the year consolidation took place, approaching their 30s, and young people born in 2005, this year I was first elected to office, now eligible to vote. We have two generations of Augustans who have never had the opportunity to be a part of shaping how government functions. This statement is so dishonest. Listen to what he said. When one considers the young generation of Augustans, I believe it is inherent upon our community to ask for their input to how our local government works. You already decided how it's going to work. You asking them to vote to give the mayor a vote. Well, if you want them to understand how it works, you will be asking for a blue ribbon committee to study the charter and to let them weigh in and be a part of the process and weigh in on what the government's going to look like. As opposed to trying to say, hey, we want the young people to decide to say, does the mayor need a vote? No, that's not where it's done, Mr. Mayor, and you know that. A blue ribbon committee is always a part of the process. And then you begin to study what is needed, what is not needed, and then you implement, you vote on those things and you implement that. That is not correct, and you know it. In today's environment of toxic political polarization, I consider the blessing to serve as the chairman of the Augusta Stronger Together campaign. Let me go back to something I think is very, very important about why when he want to blame the charter. It's not the charter; it's the individuals. And I've been one of those individuals as a one of those commissioners on that commission. Also, and what it is that we won't stay in our lane. We are just legally supposed to be nothing but policymakers, but we try to run the day-to-day operations of the government. That's what we do. We get in the way. Let me give you an example of how you can see racial things and you can see the mistrust that the mayor talked about that we bring to the table. It has nothing to do with the charter. On March the 12th of this year, 2024, I was in the chamber. I still attend the meetings. And one of the issues that were before the commission was a change order. The change order was for $42,000. The whole bid was $150,000, and then it became a $42,000 change order. Immediately, one of the commissioners said, something had to be wrong here. This is almost 50% of the bid. Something had to be wrong with it. The director, Hasan Welcher, he elaborated on it and made them understand what the challenge was. It was a water table. There was paving of a street. There was no way they could tell, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Now, also on the 12th, now I want you to know the vendor here who had this contract was black. Also on the agenda was an issue about a contract to the tune that was not a contract, a conversation of a $14 million, what they were saying, a phase 2 of a project that I can remember that I was a part of in 22. So when I saw it, I knew it was not factual. And what was being asked saying, okay, well, we want to do this, a phase 2 of this project is a $14 million project. So what did I decide to do? I got on the delegation and got my 5 minutes on the 19th because it moved forward. Now, excuse me, I need to back up for a minute. When the item was on the agenda on the 12th, it should have not been on the agenda. Why? Because the previous Thursday on 9 o'clock, everything has to be into the clerk to begin to formulate the agenda for Tuesday. When it was sent to the administrator, she would not put it on the agenda. So when she would put it on the agenda, I guess the department head person called a commissioner, and the commissioner added to the agenda. So now, when it gets there on the 19th, the question becomes, no, on the 12th, why was this not on the agenda? And she said, number one, I just got it right at 9 o'clock last Thursday. However, we were not aware of this project. Procurement was not aware of this project. Finance was not aware of this project. We heard some rumbling, but this project had not went through its due process, so it should not have been on the agenda. But the commissioner put it on the agenda. What does that have to do, Mr. Mayor, with the document, our charter? That's our behavior as commissioners. That's not the document. That's not the document. So let's go fast forward to the 19th. So on the 19th, the issue that I was concerned about was the $14 million. I get up, I have my 5 minutes, I make a presentation. Immediately, the mayor asked me, am I saying that this project pretty much doesn't exist, has nothing to do with the project that was passed in 22? I said, absolutely, Mr. Mayor, that's what I'm saying. He passed it on to a commissioner, a conversation to the commissioner to ask a question. That commissioner called up the procurement department, and the procurement department says, I absolutely agree with Ben Hasan. There's nothing here that indicates that we had seen this project. We're not familiar with this project. The project has not through its due diligence. I encourage you that this is an integrity issue. This has long-term ramifications, and we need to be careful. You all need to slow down. That was her quote to them. Now that director, who has been encouraged to bring this forward or to do this, he immediately said, Ben Hasan is correct. It's not phase two. It's not a phase two. It's like a change order. You heard change order much earlier, right? About $42,000 for a black one. This is $14 million change order. Guess what? That same commissioner's in the room. He don't open his mouth. You know why? Because it's a white firm. $14 million. He says absolutely nothing. And remember, this project don't even exist. They're manufacturing a project. And this is the sad part about this, and they will be dealing with it again on the 16th. So that is the problem that we have. Commissioners that we meddle. I've been down there for 8 years and 4 months. We meddle and go into places that we shouldn't be. The document has nothing to do with that. Now, let me be very clear here. I'm not saying that we don't need to have a Blue Ribbon Committee and try to see what improvements we can make to this document, because I'm sure since 1996, it can have some changes. And also, when you're talking about the mayor making mention of what Senator Walker's comments, another point that needs to be made. The government consolidated in January 1st, 1996. In May of 1996, the commissioners asked the delegation to come in because they had a single question. That question was, the delegation came. Senator Walker at that time was the spokesperson for the delegation. He was not the chairman, but he was the spokesperson. Jack Cornell, who is now deceased, was the chairperson. And with that being said, that single question was, could we hire an administrator? They wanted to know because there was no administrator in the charter. So now if there was no administrator, the mayor is the only full-time employee because commissioners are part-time. There was responsibility, inherent responsibility there with the mayor that nobody's talked about. So the mayor could have, in essence, been running the government by being the CEO because there was no administrator. That don't mean you couldn't hire someone to work with them or what have you, but here's what the senator's response to them. He's saying, absolutely, you can hire an administrator. We recommend that you hire an administrator, but you all cannot abrogate you all's responsibility, meaning that they could not give that administrator the authority and the power that came to the governing body. The very next week, the commission started working on hiring an administrator. And that's how we got an administrator. There was no administrator in the charter. Let me share something with you about life, that this document talks about the authority that the administrators have, that mayors have, because it doesn't spell it out, they have a tendency to miss it. This is a true story. Back early on when they started Mayfest, when Sheriff Best and Fast, they were at another station. These things were down the May Park. They were just not getting started. I had my shop on Lane and Walker Boulevard and what have you. And at that time, they used to pay, vendors used to pay and stuff to come up on May Park and everything. Now, I didn't pay to come up on May Park, so what I did, I set up on the sidewalk down there. With that being said, because I had my business license and everything, so I didn't want to pay to go up that step right up just a few more feet. The police came over to me and told me I had to move. I said, "Why I got to move? I got business license." Then, of course, there's several officers pretty much came up, and they standing, they talking, telling me I need to move. I tell them, I said, "Well, I don't need to move." I said, "I got business. I've shown my business license." I said, "I don't have to move. I'm not on their property here." So finally, one of them said to me, he says, "We're going to confiscate your wares." Now, remember, it's a Saturday. I know I'm going to get my ware back Monday because the law is on my side. But it does me no good to have all my stuff confiscated over the weekend. Even if I leave there, I need to go back to my store or go out on the street somewhere, leave my store open and go out and sell somewhere. I can't afford that. But in the moment that was said, here's what registered on me that they wouldn't say to me. When they were saying I couldn't be there, they never told me this. This is like the charter. They never told me this. All I had to do, and this is what I did, it dawned on me, I took my tables off the sidewalk, took them off the curb, and set them down like in a car parking space. Guess what? All those police officers walked off. They wouldn't tell me just to get off the sidewalk and you get right down the street. They wouldn't tell me that. So this document, there's no more authority that the mayor has than those mayors are willing to look at it, because they're thinking about their title as opposed to the influence they bring to the table or bring to the process. That's their problem. That's not the document problem. And to talk about is not democratic and all of that, I mean, that is a farce. Mayor Copenhaver knows better. He's been through this process before. 2010, 2011, when he was the mayor, they were attempting to revitalize the Personnel and Policy and Procedure Manual and was trying to change things in the charter by doing that. They were considering conversations were making the administrator the CEO, who happens to be Fred Russell, and all those kinds of things. Well, what happened there? Which was illegal, because they had the 6 twice. They were going to be able to try to do it with 6 votes. Well, what was illegal? The organization called HOPE, Helping Out People Excel. HOPE is the acronym. Helping Out People Excel. They sued the city. Not only did they sue the city, February the 1st, 2011, as a citizen, I got on the agenda and addressed them and told them that they couldn't do that with no 6 votes. Guess what? They walked away from it and they left it alone. So this is not new that these illegal moves be made to try to change it, but it only changes, and only come into play when it looks like the authority begins to change. Black folks are not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're trying to govern just as well as anybody else and want to be respected. But that's what's happened. Knowing the next mayor was going to potentially be a black mayor, and so in 2011, they're trying to tinker with it by going into the Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual. So this is nothing new. And you may think it's different, you said, because you have a black mayor that's doing it. Yes. But carrying water for other folks is very interesting. It's not new either. Not new either. So this is a sad day, but I just wanted to say that there. But I have one more thing I need to say here. And Mayor Copenhaver says, on a personal note, I know that having recently come through cancer, through the prayers and support of family, friends, and our community as a whole, the good Lord has kept me around for a reason, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that this campaign is a major part of his calling for me. Mr. Mayor, We thank God that you're all, Mr. Mayor Copenhaver, we thank God that you're all around. I, like you, agree that if God has allowed you to be here and to deal with cancer, and thank God that that happened, but he wants you to do it right. If you want to accept God's gift, don't dishonor God's gift by not telling the people the truth that this is not a legitimate resolution. Let them know that this is not a legitimate resolution. Say to them that this should not have been done this way. Say to them that the five of the six black commissioners should have not been ignored. Say to them that the delegation, the five black members on the delegation was ignored as well. Say to them this was not right. And ask them let's go back to the drawing board. Encourage the people to vote no, since it's going to be on the ballot, and go back and ask for a blue ribbon committee of the state giving us permission or the governing authority on the local level giving us permission. Mr. Mayor, if you want to honor the gift that God has given you, and when it comes to this charter, come clean with the people and be honest about that, Mr. Mayor. I think that's what you ought to do. You've invoked God's name in this, is giving you a new lease on life. And I think it's only appropriate that you honor in the most respectful and dignified manner, as opposed to in an unethical and immoral way that this has been done. There's nothing legal about this. And when you're talking about the distrust and the fractures in the government, do you think it's going to get any better given the mayor if all these steps has been violated? How does that bring us together, Mr. Mayor? How does that bring us together? It's no way possible. It's no way possible. So if you want to take the lead as the chairman of that committee, do the community a service and be honest with them. Now that it has been brought to your attention about the error of these steps that have been taken. Thank you all very much for your time. Keep the faith.